witches, I'm AD and welcome back to my channel. It's a beautiful, beautiful day outside in LA and I thought I would answer all of your questions about witchcraft. If I don't answer a question in this video, definitely comment in the comments below. Let me know all of your questions so that I can answer them in my next video. And remember to subscribe for more videos like this because I'm going to be making so many for you guys. So yeah, let's get into it. Our first question is actually the question that inspired me to create this Q&A video. So yeah, thank you Lady DD. The question is, what's the difference between runes, sigils, and magic seals? So runes, as you guys have seen in some of my videos, are derived from Norse traditions of mythology, divination, and language writing. Odin, or Woden as some people like to call him in the Anglo-Saxon tradition, hung himself from the world tree for 9 days. And in this time, he discovered the runes and ended up sharing it with everyone in his culture. So the runes are a system of casting out for, creating your will, but you can also use them as a system of divination and writing. It's one of my favorite subjects, and I have a whole series for you guys if you want to check that out. Sigils. So sigils are, there can be a couple different types of sigils. There's the August Osman Spare, or Spare, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but creating the Spare sigils are actually really interesting because you create a sentence like, this is my will to do this, get this job, or something like that. And then you start to take away from that entire sentence until you get letters. And those letters can be combined in order to create that sigil. And then you charge that sigil with any sort of act that is powerful enough to charge it. Generally a sexual act in terms of this type of sigil. So an orgasm or something. And you focus on that specific sigil in order to charge it, in order to will that thing into existence. So there's also sigils for angels and demons, and witches can make their own sigils as well in order to create a signature for their name. There are a lot of books on different symbols and also books that show you the different types of sigils or name signatures for demons and angels as well. And magic seals. So magic seals are a part of planetary magic. And actually you can use sigils created by planetary magic as well by using the kamiyas or the magic squares of the planets. So if you were looking for love, maybe you can manifest that by using the planetary kamiya of Venus and using the word love to manifest that. It's a little complicated and it's very advanced, but basically there are numerical correspondences to the magic seals and to the kamiyas, and there are also letter correspondences. So you can find the letters of love in that kamiya and also create that sigil in that sense. Whereas magic seals are actually used in order to block the energy from a planet. So if there's like a planet in retrograde or something, like Venus in retrograde is really bad for my sign because I'm a Taurus, and I would really like to block that because usually when Venus is in retrograde, that's when my life falls apart. Or Mercury retrograde, which like this last Mercury retrograde was horrible pretty much for everyone. That's where you would want to block the power of that planet with its seal. I do explain this a little bit in my Mercury retrograde how to block its energy video, which I can link in the description box below for you guys, but it is very advanced magic and it can get really confusing, so you definitely want to do more research on this. Let's see. In addition to mundane precautions, are you taking magical measures to protect yourself from COVID-19? Can you recommend any? So at the moment, I'm technically not making any magical precautions aside from doing a little bit of rune yoga in the morning to kind of heal myself, using the Oud rune, which is a rune of healing, to kind of just keep myself healthy, and doing a little bit of grounding exercises, but I haven't really done too much because right now I'm self-isolating. So that's kind of keeping myself from gaining anything from this, from getting any sort of illness because I'm social distancing. So in my opinion, what you could do, you can do some healing exercises like ritual baths. You can work with the Oud rune by doing rune yoga or something like that, or casting it out to keep yourself healed. Ritual baths are also like incredibly intense, and using bath salts and things like that to cleanse your system. You can even do it in the shower if you wanted by doing a scrub and kind of maybe just saying an incantation of some sort that you create. There's a lot of different things that you can do in order to heal your body, especially during this time, in order to protect yourself, to shield yourself from this. But I currently am not doing very much because I'm social distancing, which is one of the best things for me during this time. Okay, this is a two-part question from my video about books for magical symbols. We have, would you recommend I read Greer's Elementary Tristis or Agrippa's 3 books first? I would recommend Agrippa's 3 books first because it is a general sense of magic and it tells you about the Kamias and different systems, geomancy and different types of ritual magic as well, and so much more. For Greer's Elementary Justice, that is a seriously advanced book for metaphysics. And you have to know a little bit about metaphysics, sacred geometry, alchemy, and so much more before you even go into that book. So I think you should definitely start off with occult books of philosophy first. Okay. How would life be better if magic was a main staple of life or religion still? Whew, this is a great question, actually. Oh, man. I think that life would be so much better if magic were still a part of everyone's lives, because people would be able to understand themselves a lot more and accept themselves a lot more. And they would understand nature and the fact that we are all in control of our lives and able to manifest what we want if we really want it. And we wouldn't hold ourselves back as much as well. Because there's so many religions and so many things that tell you you can't do certain things. Whereas with the craft or with certain types of paganism, you're told to express yourself and find those ways of doing things rather than holding yourself back completely. Like not overindulging, like that's something that we should do, but not completely holding ourselves back from everything, because that's just not good for us. If we hold ourselves back, then we regret so much of what we didn't do. So what we should do is embrace everything that we want to do, but think of it in like moderation sort of thing. So I feel like we would all be more one with ourselves and one with each other if we all still embraced magic in that way. And if people didn't keep other people from being able to live their lives in the way that made them fulfilled and happy, it would be so much better. There's been so much of being in the dark during this entire time of people not accepting witchcraft and not accepting the fact that we all have this power within ourselves. We just need to allow it to come to fruition. So yeah, the world would be so much cooler if we had that. And that's a really good question, because man, I could go into so much more of that, but yeah, man. What to do when a spell is not working, and how does those spells affect my life? I actually have 2 of these questions. What are the reasons some of my spells won't work anymore? This happens to me a lot, actually, and it could possibly be the fact that something in your life is keeping you from having the spell manifest, whether it's you yourself being blocked from the ability to manifest your spells because you don't believe in yourself, or because there's like a mental block of some kind. Maybe the universe feels that this isn't the right time to have this thing being manifest. There could be so many different things. It could be that the spell itself wasn't very powerful enough. Maybe you needed extra candles, or maybe you needed something more than just a verbal spell, or something more than just using what you use. So yeah, there's just so many different reasons why spells don't work, and it's hard to really say why specifically, but I went through a period last year where my spells didn't work for a good 6 months, and I kind of just had to allow myself to come back to myself in order to have things manifest again, if that makes sense. I had to kind of believe in myself more in order for it to work. So keep trying, keep working at it. If a specific spell stops working, don't keep trying that specific spell. Try working in different elements, experiment more, see what works. But also be careful, because you don't want to put too much energy into one spell, because one, it could work eventually and explode. It could, like my spell, like I tried it so many times and I just gave up, and then 4 months later, it just kind of just like everything happened at once, which was amazing, but it was a bit overwhelming at the same time. So you want to be careful. Like sometimes you just really want to be able to just have that spell work and just, I need it now. But sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it's not going to work right away. And if it doesn't, let it be. Work on something else, or work on manifesting that goal in a different way. Because sometimes the universe says, okay, you did the spell, but what are you also going to do to try? Like you can't say, I want a new job, and then not do anything at all. You can't like do a spell that says, I'm getting a new job, but I'm going to stay at home and do absolutely nothing, and it's going to come to me. You have to continue to work towards your goal for your spell to work. It's like a boost in your life, rather than it's going to work regardless without me trying. So if you want that job, do that spell, but also send out your resume. Tell people you're looking for a job, and then someone will be like, oh shoot, you're looking for a job? oh man, I have something for you, and that's how your spell works or manifests. It's definitely one of those things where you should definitely keep trying, show the universe that you're working towards it, and it will eventually happen if it's meant to happen. All right, so we have, I love you, AD, thank you. I'm trying to be a witch in training, but could you teach me how to brew a revenge spell sometime? So I don't do revenge spells because I know that these types of spells can definitely backfire. It's one of those things where, you know, if you put something bad out into the universe, it can definitely come back to you. So I don't do revenge spells, but I would suggest doing something like getting over this person doing this thing to me spell. Because it's sometimes hard getting over these things. Like, I have a hard time forgiving people. But maybe do a spell that helps you work towards doing you. Focusing on what you want, focusing on your specific goals, to get away from this person, to move on, to have something work out better than you could have ever imagined without this person in your life, something like that. You want to work on positivity, because sometimes I want to do revenge spells, sometimes I want to get back to that person, but it's just not worth it, because a lot of the times it'll just hit you back and it's just like, oh, I kind of fucked myself over because I did this and it did this to me. So yeah, I would suggest even like you could do a banishing spell, maybe use the rune thorn. I've done that before in order to get certain people out of my life so I can focus on better things. So yeah, just work on you, because that's the most important thing. Don't focus on all these other people. They'll eventually leave your life because they're not supposed to be in your life, or if they are, you're supposed to learn something from them. Just think of all of these things as a learning experience for you in general. You learned from this, you're moved on from this, now you're a better person. And that's the best advice that I can give you for this type of thing. Let's see. What's going to happen if I burn a spell? And can you do 2 spells in the same time? So if you burn a spell, that generally, that can either help you manifest a spell or it can help you get rid of something. I usually do spells where I burn a piece of paper to get rid of a certain thought or a certain feeling, to get over something or someone, something like that. So I did a video actually about this before where I burned a bunch of different phrases and things that I wanted to get over in order to let go of the past. That's where I would say fire spells work in handy. In terms of burning things. You burn sage in order to, you know, get rid of negative energy, things like that. So fire helps with not only manifesting and bringing that creativity, but also getting rid of certain energies as well. And I kind of answered this before, doing 2 spells at once, it just really depends. You can do 2 spells at once, but remember, one might dominate the other, or I don't know, the energy can be crossed and the spells can come together. It really depends. I would space them out just in case, because you want to be able to give it that time. You want to see what's happening in between that, just to see what happens. Like, you want to do 1 spell and then give another spell 2 weeks, just in case the other one works out and you're like, oh, this is great. You see it happening rather than having those 2 spells coincide and being like, oh, well, I don't really know which one's working at the moment. So I would space out your spells just in case, but keep experimenting, keep working towards it for sure. What's the best way to start a fire divination for a baby witch? So I don't really know that much about fire divinations, so I would definitely do as much research as I can, looking into certain books about divination. In my opinion, starting to set a fire and just looking into it and seeing what you see, kind of maybe meditating on the fire or the flame, and giving yourself that ability to connect with it would be a good way to start. Just focusing as much energy as you can while you're doing the fire divination. Have your fireplace there and sit for as long as you can until you think that you're ready to read whatever you're going to see in the actual fire itself. And a lot of the times I feel like divination is about what you feel and what you see as well. So your connection to whatever you see could be very different from someone else's connection to whatever they see. Like, I read clouds sometimes, and my interpretation of a cloud divination could be completely different from someone else's. So yeah, I would experiment as much as you can with this, because it's all about you and how you feel in the moment and your interpretation of whatever question you ask or whatever you meditate on for whatever you're going to see in your divination. Do you know what happens after death? This is actually interesting because I did a video about this. I did a little series about what happens after we die, or like death in general. And for me, I feel like we go into a certain consciousness. And yeah, it's interesting because I feel like our souls kind of do this little dance of coming back together with our soulmates, people in our lives that continue to follow us through each of our lifetimes. And we figure out what our next move is. We figure out where we want to go next and what we want to learn in order to have our souls kind of go from the 3D to the 4D to the 5D in order to ascend and become a lighter being. So with that, I feel like we go to our certain version of paradise. So it can be anywhere from what we're feeling at the time that we die in our consciousness, because our minds are a part of us and it will stay with us wherever we go. If when I die, I feel very happy and pleased with myself or with my life in general, I feel like I've learned as much as I can, I will probably in my conscious state go to a place or go to my paradise, go somewhere where I feel like I am my best self, sort of thing. Whereas if I were like really depressed, down and out, my consciousness would go into a state of depression, and I probably would have a hard time getting out of that. It's the same thing for you feeling like your best self. You would be in your best state of mind. You would be in your like, oh, I'm in freaking like the tropics on the beach. I feel good. I have my entire just situation. It's beautiful. I think there's a movie called What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams, and it's the same sort of concept. He goes to his paradise, his wife is depressed and goes to her depressed state, and he tries to find her and help her get out of that. It's very similar to that. I don't believe in heaven or hell. I think these are concepts that kind of derive from this general idea that I'm describing, but I think they were skewed in a way to make people afraid of doing certain things in their lives so that they wouldn't go to a certain place. With religions, I feel like they had a hard time describing this sort of concept, so they kind of went from, if you're in a good state of mind, you'll go to your paradise, or if you're in a bad state of mind, you'll go to a darker place because you're in that state of mind, to if you're a bad person, you go to hell, and if you're a good person, you go to heaven. It's not that simple, and it's a really difficult concept to understand. So I feel like if I were in a good state of mind when I die, I will be in the place where I see myself being in a paradise. And then once I am done with whatever I'm doing there, once I have my, freedom or whatever, I will decide, okay, now I'm ready to go back and live my life in a way that will fulfill me, challenge me, basically bring me to my ability to learn as much as possible, and then go back into the cycle of life, death, rebirth, until my soul is completely rejuvenated centuries from now, and I'm able to ascend into a different state of being, into a light being in a different part of the universe. So yeah, it's very complex. How do you deal with non-witches telling you won't find happiness and be content in your witch life? Or people telling you you've been deceived, or whatever, new age propaganda, you've been led astray, yada, yada, yada. This is actually a really good question, because I tell those bitches to fuck off. I tell people, I don't really care what you believe, but don't tell me what to believe. Don't tell me what I should be doing, because it's my life and this is how I'm gonna live it. I feel that I am living my best life now because I am accepting myself for who I am, and I'm able to do what I really want to do and what I care about. And I'm able to help other people do the same thing. I'm teaching people to be the best version of themselves and accept themselves, as well as accepting other people for believing in something different. Because what's the point of having a society where everyone believes in the same thing? You have to be as accepting and as creative and as embracing as possible in this life in order to grow. So I feel like that's what I'm doing. I'm teaching people something new. I'm teaching people what I believe and what a lot of other people believe, so that they can understand that witches aren't evil. They can understand that we're just normal people that believe in something different, that embrace nature and that accept themselves for who they are and allow themselves to do what they want to live their best lives. So if someone doesn't like that or accept that, I'm just like, it's kind of a head scratcher, but I'm just being a good person, I'm just being myself. And if you don't accept me for who I am, then what's the point of you being around me? So yeah, if anyone tells you that you're a terrible person for believing in what you believe, then tell them that they're just not meant to be in your life, because what's the point of having someone negative in your life in that way? You should be you, and you should do what you want. If you're not hurting anyone, I mean, what's the problem? You are being your true self. So yeah, that's what I say. I'm being my true self, and if you don't accept me, then get the fuck out. Why did you stop making videos last year? Well, during that time I was actually going through a major depression. So it was really hard for me to be in front of the camera because, you know, being in front of the camera, I have to be lively. I have to give you guys like oomph. I have to show you my personality, and I just wasn't feeling that at the time. And it was really difficult for me to really do anything. I didn't really leave my room for a long time. And plus, I was also living in a co-living community where there were just a lot of people around all the time. No one really left the house because they didn't really have anything to do with themselves. And that made it difficult to make videos because I needed space and quiet. So yeah, I went through a really difficult time, and I actually explained that in my podcast about mental health. If you guys are interested in that, I'll have a link for that in the description box below as well. But yeah, I went through a really difficult time, and I'm finally moving forward and getting out of that so that I can enjoy making videos again, because I had a hard time enjoying making videos because it was so difficult for me to make them. So yeah, I hope that answered your question, and I'm sorry for being gone for so long, but I'm here now and I am making as many videos as possible and just sticking with it because I love making videos and I love being there for you guys. So those are the questions that you guys asked me specifically, but I do have a couple of questions that actually like come up a lot. Can men be witches? Men can be witches. There are a lot of male witches. There are a lot of male scholars, occultists, people that have created books, and the ones that you guys are reading now are made by a lot of male witches. So yeah, there are male witches everywhere. Don't worry about witchcraft being more dominated by women, because it's not necessarily true. More women embrace witchcraft and are allowing themselves right now to be one with the craft, to learn more about the craft. But men can definitely be witches. If you're a man and you feel like you're a witch, like this video, because you'll see how many other men are liking it and will say, yes, I'm a witch. I'm here and I'm confident enough to call myself a witch. You have to be a full-blown witch to perform a spell. You have to embrace the craft fully in order for your spells to continue to work. You have to embrace nature and the ability to manifest your goals in order to call yourself a witch. You have to practice and study and experiment as much as you can in order to say, I study witchcraft, I am a witch. So, I mean, it's kind of like a yes and no. You don't necessarily have to be a witch fully in order to perform a spell, but you have to believe that you have that power within you in order to do it. So it's kind of like a middle ground. People manifest things all the time without knowing it, but in order to fully understand what you're doing and call yourself a witch, you have to study and practice and embrace the craft as much as you can. Do you have to perform a spell in a specific language for it to work? Yes and no. If a spell has been created in a specific language that you have found in a book, yes, you have to perform that spell in this language. But if you're creating your own spells and you don't know a specific language, then write them in the language that you know. If you don't know any other language but you know English, write your spells in English. If you know Latin, if you know French, and you feel like maybe giving it that extra oomph with the accent or with the specific wording, you can make that spell better, use it in that language. But don't create a spell in a language that you don't fully know. Don't really perform a spell in a language that you don't fully understand, just because you need to understand every single aspect of the spell in order for it to work. If you don't understand the wording in a specific Latin spell, you might not enunciate it properly. And if you don't enunciate it properly, then a certain part of that spell might not work. It might be, pronouncing the word in a specific way in order for it to work. So yeah, you have to understand specific languages for some specific spells, but in order to create your own spells, you definitely don't have to use another language for that. So yeah, these are all of the questions that I have from you guys, but if you have more questions, feel free to comment down below, ask me anything you want, and I'll try to answer it for you guys in the best way possible. So yeah, subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys next time.